The pharmacy line was moving slowly, but for her, time felt like it had already run out. Every second her daughter stood beside her, small fingers gripping her worn jacket, felt heavier than the last. The white lights overhead buzzed faintly, the shelves smelled of antiseptic and plastic, and the receipt in her trembling hand looked less like paper and more like a verdict. This was the moment where hope either survived or broke completely. Before the story unfolds any further, take a moment. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet miracles that happen when strangers choose compassion, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel Single Dad Diaries. Your support keeps stories like this alive. She had not always imagined her life this way. Once, her world had been simple and full of plans. College brochures stacked neatly in a drawer, a tiny savings account meant for the future, and dreams that felt reachable. But life has a way of testing people not in dramatic explosions, but in slow, grinding erosion. Her husband's sudden death in a workplace accident had turned her life into a series of emergencies. Grief arrived first, heavy and disorienting. Then bills followed, relentless and unfeeling. And finally, responsibility settled in permanently, because she was no longer just surviving for herself. She was surviving for her daughter. Her daughter was 6 years old, bright-eyed despite the fatigue that had settled into her small body over the past months. A rare autoimmune condition had crept into their lives without warning, turning ordinary colds into dangerous threats and making medication not optional, but essential. Every bottle, every refill, came with a cost that felt absurdly high compared to the fragile plastic container it came in. Insurance covered some things, but not enough. It never seemed to be enough. She worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3. Early mornings cleaning offices before sunrise, afternoons stocking shelves at a discount store, and occasional night shifts wherever she could find them. Her hands were always dry and cracked, her feet constantly sore. Sleep came in fragments. Yet every night, she read to her daughter, brushed her hair gently, and whispered reassurances she herself did not fully believe. She told her daughter everything would be okay because that was what mothers did, even when the truth was uncertain. The pharmacy had become a familiar battlefield. Each visit carried the same ritual, hope while waiting, dread at the register, and quiet humiliation when the numbers appeared on the screen. She learned to read the pharmacist's face before the total was even spoken. She learned to swallow embarrassment before it reached her eyes. She learned to smile apologetically when she had to ask if there was any cheaper alternative, any discount, any miracle hiding behind the counter. That day, the total was higher than usual. A new prescription had been added, something the doctor insisted could not wait. Her bank balance had already been calculated in her head a dozen times. Rent was due. Utilities were late. Groceries were stretched thin. She stood there knowing, before she even reached for her card, that it would not go through. The card declined once. Then again. The sound was soft, but it echoed inside her chest like a slammed door. She felt heat rise to her face, felt the familiar urge to apologize for existing, for taking up space in a line of people who all seemed healthier, calmer, more secure. Her daughter looked up at her, confusion clouding her face, and that alone nearly broke her. She stepped aside, whispering reassurances, promising they would figure something out. She asked the pharmacist quietly if they could hold the medication while she tried to move money, while she called someone, while she performed some financial magic she knew did not exist. The pharmacist nodded kindly, but kindness did not lower the price. Behind her stood a man she barely noticed at first. He was dressed simply, no flashy suit, no obvious signs of wealth. He looked tired in a way that suggested long days and heavier responsibilities. He had been scrolling on his phone, half present, like everyone else in line. But something about the way she hunched over her wallet, something about the way the little girl clutched her sleeve, pulled his attention fully into the moment. He had built an empire from nothing. Years ago, he had slept in his car, eaten cheap meals, and gambled everything on an idea most people dismissed. Success came slowly, then all at once. Boardrooms, headlines, and numbers so large they stopped feeling real became his everyday reality. Yet moments like this cut through all of it, reminding him of a past he rarely spoke about. A past where his own mother once stood in a similar line, choosing between medicine and groceries. He stepped forward, close enough that his presence was felt before it was acknowledged. He did not raise his voice. He did not seek attention. He leaned in slightly and spoke in a tone meant only for her, calm and certain, telling the cashier to charge it to him. At first, she did not understand. Her mind was too overwhelmed to process generosity that did not come with conditions. She turned, eyes wide, ready to refuse, ready to apologize, ready to explain that she could not accept help from a stranger. Pride flared briefly, fragile but still alive. But then she looked at her daughter. Pale cheeks. Brave smile. Trusting eyes. The transaction went through before she could protest. The receipt printed. The bag was handed over. The moment passed so quickly it felt unreal, like a scene from someone else's life. She tried to thank him, words tumbling out clumsily, but he simply nodded, a small gesture that carried no expectation of gratitude. He told her it was nothing, told her to take care, and stepped back into anonymity. She walked out of the pharmacy in a daze. The automatic doors slid open, letting in cold air and late afternoon light. She sat in her car for a long time before driving away, gripping the steering wheel as tears finally came. Not loud, not dramatic, but steady and cleansing. For the first time in months, she felt something other than fear. She felt seen. That night, her daughter slept more peacefully than she had in weeks. The medicine worked quickly, easing symptoms, restoring a bit of energy, a bit of childhood. Watching her breathe evenly in bed, she allowed herself to imagine a future again, even if only in fragments. She promised herself that if she ever had the chance, she would pay that kindness forward. Days turned into weeks. The relief from that one moment carried her through longer than she expected. It did not solve all her problems, but it shifted something inside her. She walked a little straighter. She asked for help more often, no longer seeing it as failure. A local community group helped her apply for assistance programs she had not known existed. A neighbor offered to watch her daughter during night shifts. Small things began to add up. Meanwhile, the man from the pharmacy returned to his world of meetings and decisions, but the image of the mother and child stayed with him. It lingered during late nights and quiet drives. He had spent years donating to charities, funding initiatives, writing checks that made headlines. Yet this moment, simple and private, felt more impactful than any public gesture. He asked his team to research local healthcare gaps, to identify where people were falling through the cracks. Quietly, without press releases or branding, he began funding programs that reduced medication costs for low-income families. He insisted on anonymity. He did not want praise. He wanted results. Months later, the single mother received a letter she almost threw away, assuming it was another bill or rejection. Instead, it informed her that her daughter qualified for a program that would cover her medication fully for the next year. She sat at the kitchen table, letter shaking in her hands, disbelief slowly transforming into gratitude. She did not know who to thank. She only knew that someone, somewhere, had decided her child mattered. Life did not become perfect. There were still hard days, still moments of exhaustion and doubt. But the constant panic eased. She enrolled in night classes, slowly working toward a certification that could lead to a better job. Her daughter laughed more. Color returned to her cheeks. Their apartment, though small, felt warmer, filled with cautious optimism. One afternoon, nearly a year after the pharmacy incident, she found herself at a community health event with her daughter. Volunteers handed out information, kids played games, and families shared stories. She noticed a familiar face across the room, older somehow, yet unmistakable. Their eyes met briefly. Recognition flickered. He smiled softly, a silent acknowledgement of a shared moment neither of them would ever forget. They did not speak. They did not need to. Some connections exist beyond words, built in seconds, lasting lifetimes. As she drove home that day, she thought about how close she had come to breaking, how one act of kindness had redirected her path. She thought about how easily despair could have won. And she thought about how powerful it was that someone chose to intervene, not as a hero, but as a human being. Stories like this are not about wealth or power. They are about choice. About noticing. About understanding that the smallest gestures can carry the greatest weight. In a world that often feels indifferent, compassion remains a radical act. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of a time you needed help or offered it to someone else, please take a moment now to like this video, share it, and subscribe to Single Dad Diaries. Your engagement tells us these stories matter and helps them reach others who might need hope today. Before you go, we have a special request. Please leave a comment sharing your thoughts, your own experience with kindness, or simply write the word hope if you believe compassion can still change lives. Your words may be the encouragement someone else is searching for right now. Because sometimes, all it takes to save a life is one whisper in a crowded room, one decision to say, "Charge it to me," and one heart willing to care when it matters most.